Awesome. Thanks again for joining us this evening. My name is Angie Sosa. I'm the Associate Director for Off-Campus Engagement here in Residential Life and Learning. I'm joined this evening by a few people. You'll see on the screen, we're going over Housing 101 for sophomores and families. And this information in particular, this first part of our show today is going to be a presentation from myself as well as Wenmo Poeha, who is from Financial Aid. So for students who need that information, we'll have that. And then also, we know a lot of you are joining us today interested in learning more about Pachyderm Place. And so that is going to come a little bit towards the end of our presentation. Again, this is being recorded, so you can always revisit this information a little bit later. If you've got specific questions, we definitely recommend putting some questions in the Q&A. We've got some folks on the back end who will be able to answer them as they come in, or potentially, if we have some time towards the end, we will save them for the end of the presentation. But since we have so much information to go over, we're going to move as quickly as possible. So as I've mentioned, Angie Sosa, Associate Director for Off-Campus Engagement. I'm going to let my colleague Wenmo introduce themselves.
Thanks, Angie. Hi, everybody. My name is Wenmo Poeha. I'm Associate Director of Financial Aid here at Tufts.
Awesome. And then Jocelyn, if you'd like to just jump in a little early and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Della Rosa. I work for Capstone Management Partners, who is the manager for Pachyderm Place. I have been with Capstone for almost 7 years now, and I work in the leasing and marketing portfolio department for all of the new developments. So really excited to chat with you all today and answer all of your questions.
Thank you again. So let's just jump straight in because, like I said, we've got a lot of information today. Some of the stuff that we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about off-campus engagement, some of the resources that we offer here on our side of the Residential Life and Learning department. We're also going to be talking about important things to consider. I know there's lots of questions about, whether or not you may qualify for living on campus and what that process looks like. We'll go over some search tips, some budgeting and financial aid, basic considerations, things to look for, finding and vetting roommates. We're also going to go over some details for students who are non-local students. So that includes international students, or say, for instance, you're looking from further away, some students might be going abroad, et cetera. Excuse me, et cetera, et cetera. We want to make sure that we have that available. We'll go over the search process. We'll go over some of the application process and the move-in process. And then also what's mostly important is really remaining engaged while off campus. After all of this is done, I'm going to pass it over to our friend Jocelyn. Jocelyn's going to give us some details on Pachyderm Place. So again, feel free to stick around. We've got lots to cover and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. So in regards to our on-campus housing options, I'm just going to jump into this straight off the boat because I know that this is a big topic for everyone. There will be limited on-campus junior and senior housing options, mostly available in the cohos, a photo which is posted on the right here, as well as Sophia Gordon Residence Hall. Those are all apartment-style housing, so you're going to get, a single room, access to a kitchen, living room, etc. The application process is the same as you would do as you were, applying to live on campus for your sophomore year. You go in and you kind of let the staff here know that you're interested in living on campus. Where it goes from there is it runs into a lottery process. So if you know anything about how a lottery might work, it is not guaranteed that everyone who applies is going to be offered an on-campus placement. Specifically, we're looking for students who are looking for housing for the full year. So if you're a student who is interested in study abroad, that can run into a little bit of challenge for you, but don't forget, we have some options that we can talk to you about. And that process is going to be randomly assigned. So what that means is we might have 100 people apply, and these are just numbers, folks. Have 100 people apply, about 80 numbers for students to select spaces. So what that means is that 80 people from that 100 are probably going to get, a lottery number where they will be able to select the space on campus, and the other 20 might not receive a lottery number. They may be offered to opt into our wait list or anything like that. That is not something I want anybody to really focus on too much in terms of the numbers. Folks often ask us, what is the percentage of people who live on campus versus off campus? And a lot of that information is challenging because it really changes from year to year. It depends on how many people apply, how many spaces are available, etc. Consider it this way. If folks are going abroad, that might look different from year to year based on like how many people are interested in going abroad, right? And so with that information, we have to keep those things in mind and kind of work with what that creates for us. Now, the application date has not yet been confirmed, but I have been told that it is going to be available somewhere between the mid to late September. So keep an eye out on your emails, social media, all of those things, because we'll be posting that information and making sure that you have that available to you. You do want to make sure that you are submitting that stuff if it is something that you're interested in. As I mentioned, students who are considering studying abroad are not going to be considered for on-campus housing. That is likely because your study abroad program is either going to have you be away from campus for a semester or for the full year. And with that, we want to ensure that the students who need housing for the full year are able to get that housing. So we'll jump into off-campus engagement. Our role here is really to kind of help, educate students on what the process is for looking for off-campus housing, really help you with navigating the ins and outs of that process, whether that's looking for spaces, learning what questions to ask as you're looking at a space, maybe meeting roommates, maybe having conversations that are not so comfortable with roommates. We're really here for that. We're also here to kind of help keep you engaged with what's happening in the surrounding Tufts community. So that could be Medford, Somerville, that could be some of the other areas that are surrounding Tufts. That could be Malden, Melrose, Brookline, Boston, etc. And so there's lots of things that are going to be happening in those individual communities, as well as stuff that's happening on campus that we want to make sure that you are remaining a part of. And so it's going to be really helpful for you to remain engaged, understand what resources we have available, and of course, ask us any questions if they come up. You'll see a photo here on the screen of our off-campus housing portal, which is kind of, it's in partnership with apartments.com, and it's kind of a resource that you can use to search for housing options. You can look for potential roommates. There are access to resources on this site as well, so different bits of information that you can look for. And the cool thing about this site with apartments.com is it feeds a lot of information in from other places as well. So specifically as it relates to universities and colleges, specifically in the area, we kind of share a database with a lot of universities and colleges in the area. So something that might be posted on one of our neighboring universities' pages could also be posted on our page. So you might be able to see kind of the same type of details. With that said, when you're looking for roommates, you might also see people from different universities who are posting there as well. So we highly recommend taking a look around this. Check it out, do it at your leisure. Lots of information on there to kind of take a look through. You'll see at the top there is a sign-in section, which you can utilize your Tufts username and password to sign in. You would need to do that in order to access the roommate section. So that's something to keep in mind. But I am going to show a couple of slides that kind of go over what that looks like. So normally, students are used to living with their friends after a year or so. A lot of times students may not be moving into a space with people that they don't know, but even still, there may be some challenges that you could potentially run into. There are such things as roommate mediation and conflict resolution that we can help you through. I know a lot of times when you're living on campus, they'll have you fill out what's called a roommate agreement. And that's a way for us to really kind of determine having those tough conversations with sharing a space. Obviously, moving into an apartment, you're going to have more people, you're going to have more potential for conflict and all of that. And I don't want us to look at conflict as a negative conversation. It's really to help us kind of navigate what things look like for different people. All of it is compromise, and we're here to kind of help you through that process. We can also help you with reviewing and navigating certain landlord or property management issues. I will say that we are not a legal representative for the university or anything like that, and we actually can't give you legal advice, but we can help you with kind of navigating what that process might look like or places to look for certain information. If you are in a situation that may require legal follow-up, we can help you with kind of determining, what are some steps that you might consider looking into, etc. So we definitely recommend reaching out to us for any questions. We can help you with searching for housing or subletting. So for students who are planning to go abroad, you might be looking to sublet your space for one semester, or you may even be looking to sublet a space from somebody else for one semester. So we can help you with navigating that. And then, of course, as I mentioned, really maintaining your involvement on campus is going to be important as well. So some of the tips that we kind of put out there right off the top, don't send money ahead of time if you are not 100% sure. We want to make sure that you're seeing the space in person, the space actually exists, that it is something that you feel is suitable for you and the other people that you're living with. And the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of times when you're moving off campus, those costs can be really high up front. Your rent is typically going to be, and I'll go over this a little bit in the next slide. Rent is typically going to be anywhere from about $1,000 a month to $1,400 a month, depending on the space that you're looking at, and varying other elements to keep in mind. And when you're looking to rent something, so far in advance, not even so far in advance, but just in general, a lot of times there's going to be upfront fees that you need to cover. So that could be, your first month of rent, your last month of rent. If your landlord is requiring a security deposit, that is an additional fee that is oftentimes the equivalent of 1 month's rent. And then if you're working with a broker or a real estate agent, there's that addition as well. So there can be anywhere from 2 to 4 months worth of rent that is paid upfront. So again, if you're paying around $1,000 a month, that's a $4,000 upfront cost that you may have to consider. So we want you all to be as well aware and knowledgeable about this process as best as possible. It's never going to feel 100% comfortable, but that's why we're here to really help you. Okay. We want to make sure that you're also being clear with your potential roommates about what your expectations are. What are your deal breakers? Are finances a concern? Is location going to be a big thing, which typically is a big thing for our students. So we want to make sure that you all are considering those things, and then also preparing for unfurnished spaces. With that said, we do have some resources where we can point you to find ways to furnish your apartment, whether it's for low cost, no cost, or, a little bit more expensive. So as I mentioned, we want to talk about what the typical costs are. Rent, as I mentioned, is anywhere from $1,000 to about $1,400 a month. What we're hearing on average from our students is that we're looking in the $1,200 per month per person, not including utilities. When I factor in utilities, I'm often telling students that you might want to estimate approximately $150 per month per person. That's including the cost for electric, gas, internet. Some spaces in the area use oil to heat the spaces, and also keeping in mind that at different parts of the year, these utilities are going to fluctuate. And so we say about $150 a month per person. That kind of estimates that you're going to have a little bit on hand to help for those times where things get a little bit busier. You can also, a little trick here is that you can also reach out to utility companies in advance and say, I'm going to live at this location and I'm just trying to get a feel for what's the average utility cost from month to month. So then that way they can say, well, that space has typically gone to, a group of the same size, and this is how much they've spent. So that way you have a little bit better of an idea of what you're going to spend. Food, transportation, and personal items are all going to be variable. They're going to be dependent on you individually. So that's something to really keep in mind. I would also recommend that you're factoring in that potential upfront cost. So signing a lease right now is going to be challenging if you have to come up with that money right away. You're not 100% sure on what to expect. So we want to make sure that you're considering all of the financial things that go into this, considering ways to budget appropriately, whether that is saving money ahead of time, getting a second job, utilizing a wholesale club. If you have a vehicle, what that process is going to look like. And then, as I mentioned, also contacting some of your utility companies ahead of time. Wenmo, you are next up, so I'm going to pass it over to you, and then we'll jump back over to me.
All right, great. Thanks, Angie. So for this part of the presentation, we're going to talk about financial aid. And one of the questions that we always get is people are asking, well, what's the impact of living off campus on financial aid? So we're going to talk about things that don't change and the things that do. So the way that we figure out the financial aid does not change. So the cost of attendance, which is kind of like the backbone or the foundation of figuring out how much aid is going to be offered, that stays the same because the same components are included. Tuition and fees, housing and food is still included because even though if you're not going to be living on campus, it still needs to be that you're living somewhere and eating. And then there's estimated out-of-pocket costs like books and supplies, personal expenses. So that total stays the same. And then the way that we figure out the family contribution is the same. So we're looking at the same, aid application materials and using the same kind of analysis. So we would figure that out from each individual student's aid application, and subtract the family contribution from the cost of attendance, and that equals a financial need, which we fulfill with, depending on the student's particular case, it may have loans, work study, or grants. So that stays the same. And something I like to tell students who are, going to be in their sophomore year is that the aid package that you have right now for the upcoming year would be the same if you were living off campus. And that's the reason why, because the cost of attendance would still be the same. So a couple things to point out that you can see here on the slide. The cost of attendance is not going to be based on the actual rent that you may be charged. It's a standard cost, and the reason why it's the same is because it's the same as a first or second year student room, and the cost of a Tufts full meal plan. So that's why it stays the same regardless of whether you're on or off campus. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is based on a 9-month academic year. And we'll get into it later that, obviously leases can be for a full year, but financial aid regulations require us to only count the academic year. So that cost of attendance is based on the academic year, same as if you were living on campus. And that's why it doesn't change even if you're living off campus. So now we can go to the next slide. So what does change? Well, the biggest thing is that Tufts is not going to bill you for a room. So if you don't go through the housing lottery process and you don't pick a room, you're not going to get charged for one. So your balance, again, using that example of if you were living off campus with your same current aid, your balance would be lower because you're not having that room charge. And in many cases, students will say, okay, I'm not going to use a meal plan, or I'm going to have a limited one because I'm going to get groceries and cook and so that may be another reason why the balance that you would normally pay to Tufts is going to be lower. So typically, all things being equal, you're going to see a lower balance than you've seen in previous years. The financial aid is applied directly to bill charges on your Tufts bill first. And what you owe is based on your particular situation. And that's very important because there is no kind of like standard cookie cutter situation for everybody. It's really based on your particular family's, aid application and that outcome, what the balance will be. For most people, you have a lower balance, all other things being equal. And then in some cases, if there's a student where they have enough aid and it exceeds the charges on the bill, then they're going to have a credit that they can request as a refund at the start of each semester, right? And so that is, again, not a standard situation. It's not something that everyone has. Even people that you're friends with and you kind of figure, oh, we're in the same situation, you heard they get a refund. It may not be the case for you. And so you really want to make sure that you're looking at your particular situation. The other thing to keep in mind is now, as I mentioned before, you're not getting charged by Tufts for a room. If you have a landlord, you're going to be paying those costs to them directly. If you don't have a meal plan and you're buying food, you're paying those costs directly. So the university is not issuing funds or sending anything directly to your landlord or any place else, even if you're in a case where you have a credit and are able to request a refund. So something to keep in mind for planning purposes. Refund requests, you can start doing that in your student account around the first day of the semester. The processing time usually takes about 7 to 10 business days. I mean, it's high volume at that point. They're trying to process them as quickly as possible. But it's just something to keep in mind. It's not like classes start and the money's there in your account. And again, that's just whatever is available as a lump sum is what gets refunded to you. So it's not like a monthly refund, or you can request a smaller amount and kind of spread it out that way. You kind of have to budget whatever. If you are a person in that situation where you have a refund, you're going to have to budget it out and kind of prepare for your payments. Another thing to keep in mind is that students who may have borrowed loans in the past, because as I said off the top, the cost of attendance is the same. You can still borrow loans either from federal or private sources, and you can create a credit because now that loan that would have paid your full bill with all the charges from Tufts, well, now you don't have them there, but you can still request a loan and use that excess if that's how it creates it. Or if your family might have a 529 saving plan, that would be a similar situation. Yeah, we can go on to the next slide. All right, so this is kind of part of that planning component. As I mentioned, the Tufts cost of attendance based on 9 months for this upcoming year. The housing cost is what you see there, 11,220. The food cost is 9,374. And as I mentioned, that's over a 9-month academic year. So when you're kind of planning and looking at what situation you might want to, be available to you. You kind of just add those up and be divided by 9, and it comes down to 2,288 a month. So if you, with all your costs, including rent, food, all utilities, all that sort of stuff that kind of falls under the radar, if your costs are $2,288 a month or less, then you're basically living or paying the same amount as you would if you lived on campus. So that's something when you're kind of looking at, as Angie mentioned, the range of rent. So you want to keep in mind those costs, and so you're not kind of going over that. It's kind of a guideline. And again, that's for 9 months. So you have to keep in mind that, as we mentioned before, most leases are for 12 months. And so you kind of have to figure out and plan, how do you pay for the other 3 months of rent? Maybe the sublet, maybe it's working. Those are situations you kind of have to figure out. And also, as Angie mentioned, leases have that kind of upfront cost of that don't have to pay when you're living on campus. First month's rent, last month's rent, security. Maybe you can negotiate to pay, less of, not pay all three of those, because typically those are, that security deposit is going to be a full month's rent. So that's kind of part of the planning component, and that, that number you want to keep in mind when you're doing your planning. As long as you stay under that, then it's equivalent to in cost to living on campus. And so, yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Angie.
Thanks so much. Trying to click through. Okay, so some things that folks need to pay attention to. You may have heard us talk about broker's fee, and some are, not involved with the broker's fee at all. Broker's fees are typically when you're working with a real estate agent or a real estate broker. There's someone who is doing the work for you, essentially. Massachusetts recently put in this law into effect about a year ago, which is set to really try and clarify what that process looks like for people. It helps you with determining who is going to be responsible for that cost, so that you're not caught by surprise by an additional fee during your process. A good general rule is whoever makes the agreement with the agent or the broker is responsible for covering that cost. So that could be you if you've signed a contract and you're working with an agent in particular to help you find a space, or if the landlord is doing it, the landlord may be responsible for it. So that is just the general good rule of thumb. I definitely recommend, doing some research and kind of seeing what those things kind of look like on that end, and asking lots of questions when you're going through the process is going to be helpful. So before you've actually signed the lease and agreed to move into a space, you want to ask, who is responsible for paying the broker's fee in this situation? Would it be us as the tenants, or would it be the landlord? So some general tips for budgeting, just to kind of keep in mind, we want to make sure that we're passing this along, is a lot of stuff can be found in various places, right? So for example, we work with the MIT Furniture Exchange for low-cost furniture items. Those are typically things that have been donated to them, and that can be furniture, that can be appliances, etc. Lots of stuff there. All you need to do is flash your Tufts ID and show them that you're interested in kind of shopping through their stuff. We'll have links to their page on our website so that you can check that out, and we'll maybe try and do some sort of programming surrounding that as well, because we want to make sure that that's information that you all have. If you are still on Facebook, not everybody is, but if you're on Facebook, Facebook has lots of different pages. They're called everything free pages, where typically you have to live in that particular area. So Medford is going to have a Medford everything free page. Somerville might have its own. You're not likely going to be able to be part of both of them at the same time, but it's really a useful space to try and find stuff that people are getting away. We also do programming with the everything free groups. Our free flea market, which happens twice a year, mostly in May and in September, that can help you with navigating, finding stuff, is going to be helpful. Facebook Marketplace is a great place to kind of see where people are getting rid of items or maybe selling items. Sometimes people are moving and can't fit it into the new space, and they're looking to get rid of stuff for cheaper prices. Joining wholesale clubs are going to be really important as well to help save money on day-to-day needs, such as toiletries, food. So you and your housemates can go in on something that you are all going to be utilizing, like toilet paper, paper towels, etc. Stuff like that is really going to help you with saving some money. I would definitely recommend familiarizing yourself with local resources. resources such as pantries or free fridges in the area. You can also join the Tufts Free Food e-list. We send out lots of communications when there's an event happening on campus, say they may have additional food. That can be something that's helpful. Say you're on campus, you're studying, you didn't make it to the cafeteria in time, or you're not going to be able to make it back home. That could be something that pops up that could be really helpful. And then if you're eligible to do so, I would definitely recommend looking for on-campus or off-campus local jobs in the community. Those can be really helpful to adding some extra change into your pocket, as well as being able to sometimes eat, because sometimes those places will have, perks for employees. So as Venmo kind of gone over, and I'll kind of just kind of briefly touch upon, and I mentioned some of this as well in terms of understanding what your monthly finances are going to look like. You're estimating in the area of $1,000 to $1,400 per month for rent. That is going to be variable. These are just kind of the ranges that we have typically seen. Utilities, you should be estimating about $150 per month. Food and meal plan, that could be adjustable based on your need. But I factored this in based on meal plan. Someone did ask whether or not people are getting meal plans. Some people do get a meal plan at the cafeteria. Sometimes they may get a smaller one, so that way, they can grab food while they're on campus, etc. Transportation, obviously, depending on your need. If you have a vehicle, paying for parking may be something you need to consider, or finding parking that's going to be suitable for your vehicle is going to be something to consider. And then personal items. So generally, you're looking in around the range of about $13,000 to about $21,000 for the full year. So you're going to divide that by 12, and you're going to look and see like kind of how that works. We do have a budgeting worksheet available in our resources page that we would recommend taking a look at. That way you can kind of see what works best for you and what's going to work best for you. If you're a student who is receiving financial aid, I would definitely recommend having a meeting with your financial aid officer to kind of see what it is you're looking at. So that way you have a good idea of what you can potentially spend next year. So if you're ready to begin your search, I know we've kind of gone through a lot of stuff really quickly, so I do want to make sure that we're giving folks some time. You're ready to begin your search. There's lots of things that you can do. We will have our upcoming event. Our off-campus housing fair will be available Wednesday, September 9th, 2026. Usually we've held this in the campus center, but we haven't solidified a space just yet, so we'll share that information as soon as we do. There, you're going to meet lots of people from the community, lots of different organizations, also some potential realtors, etc. I know Jocelyn's going to probably be there from Pachyderm Place, or someone else will be there from Pachyderm Place. So if you've got questions, you can chat with them there. But some other places to look, Facebook is an option. They have a rentals page. Word of mouth tends to be a big thing for a lot of our students in the area. People still utilize Craigslist, Zillow, the main apartments.com page, or you can utilize ourapartments.com, which is a little bit easier for students because it's mostly just students. It's stuff that's like aimed towards our students. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. The positive thing with utilizing our site also is that if you're running into any situations for potential scams or something that you say, this is not what it looked like when I found it online versus when I went to see it in person, you can flag that. And those are things that we're going to see on our end, and we can work with the developers to really make sure that we're getting that. At the end of the day, whatever option you end up choosing, whether you're working with us or you're working with someone else, we want to make sure that you're asking really good questions and that you're keeping in mind, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So just do that with a grain of salt. To our next slide. So things to consider when you're finding and vetting roommates. As many of you are likely sophomores, you may already have a group of people that you are starting to consider as potential roommates, and that's great. I do want to just throw out there really quick, keep in mind that these are likely people you've only known for about a year, right? And that's not saying that, this is not going to be lasting friendships or anything like that, but a lot can change in a year. And we just want to make sure that you are keeping those things in mind, because stuff that's, a little bit easier, or even maybe not as easy when you're living on campus, say for instance, you're needing a room change because of some drama that may have happened or anything like that. It's definitely not easier when you're living off campus. You've signed a lease, which is a legal document, and that means that you're going to be tied to that. So we really want to ensure that you're doing everything you need to do to ensure that the people you're going to be living with are going to be the people that you're comfortable living with. That means having clear expectations and conversations. What are your likes and what are your dislikes? What are things you're willing to negotiate on? Consider living with people whose practices are similar to yours. How do they utilize the space? Do they tend to keep their space cleaner or anything like that? And then also trying to get to know the person before you select them as a potential roommate right away. We know that that is very easily to, well, this is my friend, this is my best friend, or we're teammates, we're going to live together because our lifestyles are really similar. And whereas we can understand that, I do want to keep in mind that, that sometimes even living with your best friend is not the greatest thing. So here you're going to see our roommates page of our website. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because right now I'm just trying to show you what it typically looks like. Up top, you'll see that roommates section. It's been highlighted with a red circle. And then on the right, you're going to see a little filter of sorts. So these are places where you could really kind of sort through and see if there's anybody who's listed here. For those of you who may be aware of our housing connection form, we're going to be phasing that out over the next month or so. And so we're really recommending that students who may be looking for roommates, or even if you have a sublet or you're looking to sublet a space, you do that through this function. Because you're a Tufts student, posting on this site is going to be free for you. You don't need to pay to post the site, and that is going to be a great space to kind of like meet people. You can connect with people via Messenger. People's phone numbers may be available here. There's a new place for people to put their social media, all of that stuff. So we definitely want to make sure that you know that these options are available. You can also filter through, as you see on this page, you're going to see people from Boston University, Northeastern University, et cetera. You can filter stuff specifically. You can say, I'm looking specifically for Tufts University students who have a place for the fall of 2027. And then it'll show up, whoever who has listed that as an option. For international students, this is a really important page, so I want to make sure that we go over this as clearly as possible, but definitely recommend that if you've got additional questions, you're either following up directly with us or with the International Center. When you're looking for off-campus housing, it could be a little bit difficult or a little bit more difficult than a domestic student, and that is because there are certain bits of information, paperwork, or details that a domestic student will be able to more easily provide that an international student wouldn't be. So for example, if you haven't worked on campus and you're an international center, chances are you haven't been issued a social security number. The social security number is really helpful for potential landlords or brokers to do a credit check, to do a background check to make sure that you are going to be a viable tenant. They want to make sure that you have a history of paying your rent on time, of paying your bills on time, so that they don't run into that issue later. But if you don't have this, you haven't been able to really secure a credit history, they're not going to be able to see that. So whereas that might be a little bit challenging, there are some things that you can do to kind of like navigate that. One, you are not required to show your I-20. However, it has been useful for some landlords or real estate agents to kind of navigate what that looks like. So you can definitely chat with someone in the I-Center to see about getting that or talk through what that process may look like, because that could be helpful. Proof of income is helpful. That could be, if your parents are going to be paying your housing costs, maybe they're providing, here's a check from my job or proof that I have a job, and this is what our monthly income looks like, so we are able to pay for it. Same goes for you if you're able to provide anything that shows information like that. If you're a student who's receiving financial aid, you would provide some information like that. Residency verification, that's typically a landlord who is looking to confirm that you are a good resident, that you have not had any issues in your housing spaces, and you can request that type of stuff from Residential Life. If you've lived anywhere else off campus, you can provide, a letter or ask a former landlord to serve as a reference. So that's something. And then sometimes proof of enrollment. So proof of enrollment is something you can get from Student Services or the registrar's office just to show, yes, I am a student, I am actively attending Tufts University, and here's that information. Those are things that are going to be really helpful specifically for our students who are international, because a lot of the other stuff that you may be asked to provide, you might not have on hand or you might not be able to provide. So for those of you who are international, I would recommend trying to collect this information as quickly as possible. During your search, there's a lot of things that we want to make sure that you are paying attention to. We want you to consider what questions you're going to be asking prospective landlords or property managers, leasing agents, what things you're looking out for when you're moving into your in-person apartment search. So that could be making sure there are no holes in the wall or no signs of water damage or anything like that. We'll go over a lot of what that information looks for or sounds like, so that way you know what to look for. And so I would definitely recommend keeping those things in mind as you're going through it. I am going to skip over a couple of slides just in the interest of time. So some other things to keep in mind, not only the space itself, but also taking note of the neighborhood. Is it walkable? Are there grocery stores that are nearby? Will you need to use a laundromat? What's the difference look like? If you have a car, how is the parking handled? Are you able to park on site? Something to keep in mind with parking is that it's sometimes very difficult to park on the street, especially if your car is not registered in the state of Massachusetts. So we want to make sure that you're doing that. Someone even asked in the comments, who's responsible for shoveling snow or cutting the grass or taking out the trash and stuff like that. And a lot of times that is going to be on a tenant. There are certain things that the landlord will be responsible for, but those are questions that you really want to make sure that you're asking the landlord when you're getting into that, okay? When you're understanding the lease, we're unable to provide a lease review for you because that is a legal document and we're not legal representatives. So I do want to make sure that is something that is very clear to you all. However, there are some things that you should be looking out for, and I would highly recommend communicating with the real estate agent who is able to actually go through the lease with you, or with the landlord, asking them lots of questions. So this right here is kind of a quick and dirty list of some of the things that should really be in your lease. Everybody who is renting the space, that means you and all of the other tenants who are living with you, should be listed there. The name of the landlord or property manager, who your money is actually going to, who you should contact in terms of maintenance emergencies or how to deal with certain things, the terms or the dates of use for the space, how much money is the rent, when it's due, method of payment. Another question that I saw in the chat was, do landlords require you to pay individually or in one payment? And that really is a conversation between you and the landlord. Sometimes they allow for both. So I would definitely chat with them about what their preference is and then discuss that amongst the group to see what that looks like. A lot of landlords are also working on, online systems. So that could be another addition. Utilities that are covered by the landlord versus what you're responsible for covering is also going to be in there. And then some other things may be in there in terms of like your addendum. That could be, if there's parking notes, if there's use of certain spaces that you're not able to utilize. There are some other things that are really important when your lease is confirmed, such as a security deposit and making sure that that is actually handled appropriately. In the state of Massachusetts, they do have to do some things with the security deposit that might look a little bit differently. And then another thing that I highly recommend is getting renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is not very expensive, can be anywhere from $15 to $20 per month. If your family owns their home, they may even be able to tag it onto their homeowner's insurance. So if there's any parents on the call and that's something you're thinking about, I would definitely recommend reaching out to them to get more information. All things that are currently available to you are still available to you when you're living off campus. That means Tufts dining meal plans, health services, counseling and mental health services, student support. We're going to be connecting with you through various avenues, social media, newsletters, all of that type of stuff to ensure that you have lots of information and resources to get through. But keep in mind that, we're still working here with the university to make sure that there's a lot of stuff for you as well. And so I am going to wrap it up so that we can get our Packader in Place folks in place as well. These are some helpful, bits of information. They do have links, but obviously you're not able to access those links right away. But you can follow us on Instagram at Tufts_offcampus or email us at offcampusinfo@tufts.edu. And then there's lots of other resources. Connect with financial aid at student services at tufts.edu, etc. I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass it over to Jocelyn. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to continue putting them in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angie. Oh, go ahead and just make sure everyone is good and can see the screen, correct? Perfect. Okay, well, very excited to chat about Packader in Place. Just to give a quick overview of the apartments, it will have a total of 271 units, which is 664 beds. If you can see here, it will be two separate buildings. They're both going to be in the 401 Boston Ave area, so very close on campus pretty much. Just to give a little bit of context, I saw some people were wondering what Packader in Place is. So it is going to be in affiliated housing with Tufts University. We are technically on campus. However, we will operate more as an off-campus type of experience. So it's not your typical residence hall here, but you will enjoy all of the perks, I would say, of being as close to be on campus as you can be. But also you get a lot of that private bedrooms. We're going to have full kitchens here, full size showers and beds. So some people asking about that as well. But yes, what Pachyderm Place is designed for Tufts juniors and seniors. And we will be fully amenitized and utilities included as well. So for location, you can see this is Pachyderm Place as of a month ago. The development's going very well, very quickly on time, and we are pretty much as close to campus as you can be. We're within steps of your, campus needs. Also on top of that, I know Angie had mentioned making sure that you have all of the items that you would be needing in an off-campus experience. So these are just some of the places that you can get to very quickly as well if you are living at Pachyderm Place. Now for our amenities, the community features will have community lounges, focus and study rooms. There's going to be game areas in both properties as well. There is going to be on-site laundry in both of the buildings, a fitness room. We will have bike storage, and retail spaces will be attached as well. The retail spaces have not been fully vocalized yet, but just keep an eye out once that is ready for our announcement. Also, I did see somebody ask about parking. Pachyderm Place will not have parking on in the building since of the location, but again, we're as close as you can be. So on top of that, you will also have package rooms in both buildings, fitness rooms, and laundry rooms as well, just to aid in that whole factor of everything being as close as you can be and within your actual unit and building as well. So it's just making that convenience for that switch to an off-campus lifestyle. The unit features, a lot of people have been asking about the unit setups. We will have studios, 2 beds, 4 beds, and 6 beds here. As far as the count, I saw someone asked about specifically how many beds per. We will have majority of the property be 4 and 2 bedroom apartments. So the 6 in studios are a little bit more limited. We still have about 90 studios and I believe almost about 50 beds available for the 6 bedrooms as well. So it's going to be a nice mix of all there. There are ADA accommodations as well for each individual of the floor plan styles. So for someone who asked about accommodations, that is something that we will have. We'll have accommodation forms. So if there's something specific that you need, please just reach out to us, let us know so we can get that process started as well. Some of the in-unit features. So on top of that, we'll ask about private bedrooms. All of the bedrooms in Pachyderm Place will be private. They will have full-size beds unless an accommodation is needed, and we can do a twin XL bed as well. We will have full kitchens in every single unit. It'll be fully furnished with all of the necessary furnishings that is needed. You'll have high-speed Wi-Fi included, and all utilities will be included in here as well. I've had a couple questions about central AC and stuff. You will have a centralized HVAC as well per unit. So that is included as well. And then as far as for availabilities, we have not started fully leasing yet. We do have availability, so you are able to go ahead and apply. Leases will be sent out in September after everyone has been verified and eligibility has been done as well. So kind of harping on that, the way that CMP or Capstone Management Partners likes to approach this, we do individualized leases. So instead of each resident having to sign one joint and several lease, you will have your own individualized lease per resident. So that just kind of removes that liability associated with the joint lease here that you find on an off-campus. Someone asked about guarantors. We have a guarantor waiver program. We work with a company called Leap to assist with anybody who does not have a guarantor or is not able to meet certain requirements. We can partner with them. With the waiver does come an additional fee. The monthly fee is included on the application as you go through, and it assesses all of that information, and it would be available for you to view. So we have that as an option. And then we also have roommate matching here as well. So as you complete your application, there is a roommate matching form at the end. If you have roommates that you're interested in living with, you're more than welcome to label them as well as your preferred roommates. If you do not, please utilize the matching form, and we will do our best to match you with people who are like-minded and have similar answers as you as well. So that is some of the options and availabilities that we do have here and our approach at leasing. Now, as far as when we will be sending out the leases, that will be in September. We are in the process of collecting applications. They are still available. We will continue to collect applications throughout the whole leasing process. So please go ahead and complete your application. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us as well, and we'll help you with that. But with that, we will then move through, verify everyone's eligibility to live there, and then we'll start to send out those agreements and give everyone time to review the agreements with their co-signers prior to signing. To fill out an application is not an obligation. I've had a lot of questions about that as well. You're not obligated to anything about filling out an application. There's no application fee as well here currently, so you're more than welcome to just fill it out. If you have found accommodations elsewhere, let us know. We'll remove your application on file, move on to the next person. With that kind of mentions our screening process here. We will do a background check, credit check, and income check for each individual and their co-signers if they do have a guarantor available as well. Once that is done, then we'll let you know if there's any additional items that we're needing, missing from your application, and we can go from there on securing your housing. I did see a couple questions too about storage. We do not have storage on the property currently. And all of the fees and everything will be associated on the housing agreement. Right now, we have a $450 security deposit that will be required upon signing the housing agreement. So in September, that is not currently needed to be sent or paid or anything during the application process. We've had a couple questions about that as well. Applications can be found directly on our website. If you do not have our website, you're able to go ahead and scan the QR code that's available there, and that will bring you directly to our application. A lot of questions also about our just relet process, financial aid, all of that information is available on our FAQ on the website. So you can go there, take a look. If you have a specific question, it's a little nuanced, please reach out to me at info@pachydermplace.com and we'll assist there. The application takes about 10 minutes, maybe less, to go ahead and fill out. So once you're done there, if you have any questions regarding that, again, you can send us an email and we're more than happy to assist. Same thing with DMs. You can DM us on Instagram, Facebook as well. And yep, if there's any additional questions, please reach out to me. And Angie, I can throw it back over to you.
Awesome, thanks. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A that I think could be beneficial for you to answer, Jocelyn. So one question is, how long is the lease for Pachyderm Place? Is it a 9-month, a 12-month?
Perfect. Yeah. So the Pachyderm Place leases, right now, we will not have any short-term leases. They will be a full term, so a full year lease. There'll be 12 equal installments as well on there. As far as the leasing term, I've had a little bit of questions. In order to get the application started, we did have to put a specific type of term. However, the leasing terms here will officially be an August to an end of July term. So that will be available. Some questions about reletting as well, or subletting during summer months. You do have the option to relet. We do not allow sublets, but you have the option to relet. Slightly a little different. So you would be giving up your housing agreement totally to someone. Do not have any rights after they've moved in or anything like that. You are no longer tied to that lease agreement. And all of the reletting information is also available either on the website or we've communicated with anyone who's kind of worked through that.
Awesome. Great.
Mhm.
Some folks have also asked, in terms of the types of spaces that are available at Pachyderm Place, should they apply for multiple styles of spaces, or how might that work with potential roommates since they're applying person to person?
Perfect. So I would recommend one application so that any communication that goes out does not conflict with your other application that you put in. I'm more than able to switch if we do not have your preferred unit type, or if you switch it later because you gained another roommate or lost a roommate, whatever the case may be, we are more than able to switch that on our end. So please only fill out one application. Guarantors as well do not need to fill out a separate guest card or application. Once you've added them to their account, they will get their own separate invite email and they can move on with applying through there.
Great. And then utilities, is that something that is part of the rental cost altogether, or is that a separate fee?
The fees that you see on there include the utilities, so that will not be an additional fee on there. The only additional fee is I know you mentioned renter's insurance. If you do not provide your own renter's insurance, it'll be labeled in the housing agreement as well. It is required, so you would either utilize our own policy or you can build your own and bring it over to us. Either way, you would have some sort of renter's insurance that's either going to be paid on our portal or through your own separate.
And will there be tours available?
Yes. So right now, since we are an active construction site, we're not able to tour at the moment. We do have tours hopefully scheduled for early spring. And then there will be a virtual tour of the 2-bedroom available within the month. That is currently being rendered right now with our vendor. So once that is out, I will make sure to send everyone who has currently filled out an application or is in our system that information so they can go and view it, but it will be on our website.
Awesome. Some students have asked about the if you're living there, what the process is for, over the summer. Do they move out during the summer? Is there a possibility for them to return the following year? What might that look like?
Yes. So for the summer term, you do not have to move out. You have signed a lease. You live there throughout the entire summer. However, it's your space. If you do not want to stay on campus, you do not have to. You can leave, but again, you still are responsible for the space for those 2 months that you have in your housing agreement. Now, as far as renewing, we will give the option to renew your space for the future term prior to us going live with opening the leases up to anybody who has not lived at Pachyderm Place before. Once we verify your enrollment and you're good to go, we'll send you over a renewal and you're able to sign. Once you sign your renewal, you do not have to move out of your space. Your renewal is continuous from when your past lease is ended, and you will just continue on.
Right. And then in terms of folks who are looking for when they might be hearing back in regards to their applications, when can they potentially expect to hear back?
Yeah, so we're in the process of doing all of the verifications right now. We hopefully will be able to get you all some information if you've been approved very soon. However, we do just want to make sure that we are going through each individual application, making sure we're looking at the eligibility for housing, but also the screening processes as well, and going in the order that we have received the applications as well. So this is a first come, first serve property. So we do say to fill out your application as soon as possible so you can join your line in the queue. But definitely prior to us sending the agreements out in September, you will know if you've been approved or not.
Right, absolutely. Just in the interest of time, and I know there's a lot of questions that we haven't been able to get to, so I am trying to navigate them based on what that looks like. We definitely recommend checking out our websites, so then that way you can get a little bit more information based on the questions that you're asking. And if you're not able to find that there, please feel free to reach out to us. Jocelyn, what was that email again? Is it info@Pachyderm Place?
Yes, info@pachydermplace.com, and then you can go to pachydermplace.com to find out all the information. The rates are listed there, unit styles, amenities, and the FAQ section as well.
Awesome. And then for off-campus housing, just in general, off-campus engagement rather, you can reach us at offcampusinfo@tufts.edu, and we'll try our best to get back to you as quickly as possible with all the questions, answers that you may have already sent out. If we weren't able to get to your question, we definitely recommend sending that over our way so that we can get back to you. Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate being able to share this information with you. This information, this recording will be available on the Tufts Residential Life website, so you can revisit it. And we're also going to be sharing the slides as well. So if there's any additional information, you're welcome to reach out to us at those email addresses. And again, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to chat with you. And thanks again. Take care.